The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, stands as a bulwark of collective defense. Founded in 1949, its core principle is enshrined in Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty. This article dictates that an attack on one member state is an attack on all. It signifies a solemn pledge of mutual security and unwavering solidarity. Article 5 is not just a military pact, it's a political and moral one. It reflects a shared commitment to democratic values, individual liberty, and the rule of law. This collective defense principle has deterred large-scale conflicts and fostered cooperation among member states. NATO's existence has fostered an environment where dialogue and diplomacy can flourish. The strength of Article 5 lies not only in its military might but also in its symbolism. The only time Article 5 has been invoked was following the September 11th attacks on the United States. This act of terrorism triggered the collective defense mechanism of NATO. Member states, in a show of solidarity, offered their support to the United States. This included military assistance in Afghanistan and increased security measures across the alliance. The invocation of Article 5 after 9/11 demonstrated the adaptability of NATO to new and evolving threats. It underscored the alliance's relevance in a world grappling with terrorism and asymmetric warfare. During the Cold War, NATO stood firm against the threat posed by the Soviet Union, deterring aggression through a combination of military strength and political resolve. The historical context of Article 5 highlights its significance in shaping the security landscape of the North Atlantic area and beyond. The North Atlantic Treaty, while clear in its commitment to collective defense, does not explicitly address a scenario where a member state is the aggressor. This ambiguity raises complex legal and political questions. If a NATO member were to attack another, it would trigger a crisis of unprecedented proportions, challenging the very foundations of the alliance. A member state might initiate aggression due to a border dispute, a political crisis, or even a breakdown of internal order. Each scenario presents unique challenges demanding careful consideration and measured responses from the alliance. Interpreting Article 5 in this context requires navigating uncharted territory. The treaty, drafted in a different era, does not offer clear guidelines for such an eventuality. The lack of precedent further complicates the matter. In the event of aggression by a NATO member, the alliance would face a legal and diplomatic quagmire. The North Atlantic Treaty, while emphasizing collective defense, also upholds the principles of the United Nations Charter. This includes respecting the sovereignty of all nations and refraining from the threat or use of force against any state. A conflict between these two commitments would necessitate a delicate balancing act. NATO would need to condemn the aggressor's actions while upholding its commitment to international law. This could involve suspending the aggressor's membership rights, imposing sanctions, or even pursuing legal action through international courts. The UN Security Council, tasked with maintaining international peace and security, would likely play a pivotal role in such a crisis. Beyond formal legal mechanisms, NATO would need to rely heavily on diplomatic channels to resolve the crisis. The alliance's credibility and legitimacy would hinge on its ability to uphold international law while addressing the act of aggression. Diplomacy and de-escalation would be paramount in addressing aggression by a NATO member. The alliance would need to act swiftly and decisively to contain the situation, prevent further escalation, and find a peaceful resolution. This would require close coordination among member states, leveraging diplomatic channels, and engaging with international organizations. One of the first steps would likely involve suspending the aggressor state's participation in NATO activities. This would send a clear message of condemnation and demonstrate the alliance's commitment to upholding its founding principles. Simultaneously, NATO would need to initiate diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the conflict and find a peaceful resolution. This could involve appointing a special envoy, facilitating dialogue between the parties involved, and exploring potential compromises. The focus would be on finding a solution that addresses the underlying causes of the conflict while upholding international law and respecting the sovereignty of all states involved. Throughout this process, maintaining open communication channels with the aggressor state would be crucial. The scenario of a NATO member becoming an aggressor presents a significant challenge to the alliance, testing its principles, its unity, and its commitment to peace. While the North Atlantic Treaty does not offer clear-cut answers for such an unprecedented situation, NATO's core values and its commitment to international law would guide its response. The alliance would need to balance its obligation for collective defense with its responsibility to uphold international peace and security. This would require a multifaceted approach, combining diplomatic efforts, legal measures, and potential sanctions to address the crisis. NATO's actions in such a crisis would have far-reaching implications, shaping perceptions of the alliance's credibility and its commitment to its founding principles. Navigating this uncharted territory demands careful consideration, decisive action, and a steadfast commitment to peaceful resolution. Ultimately, NATO's response to aggression by a member state would define its legacy in the 21st century. It would demonstrate whether the alliance, built on the principles of collective defense and democratic values, can effectively address internal challenges while upholding its commitment to international peace and security.